next problem I'm going to address is problem 3C. And the legitimate question that one of your classmates asked is like, does the labels actually matter? So what she noticed was that in the rule she recognized that you use the quotient rule, and what she saw is that in the quotient rule, the function that's in the numerator is given the label of f of x, and the bottom function is given as g of x. So her question was really like, well, in the r of x that I have here, f of x is in the denominator. Should I like switch these two so that it'll match the rule itself? So the answer to that is like, don't switch, because if you switch it, then you have a different function. Um, so the one thing how to what I communicate to her is that the in calculus and just in math in general, we use different labels. The rule itself, we just happen to use f of x, but the labels could have been completely different. Um, so you know, and this function could have been written as like uh, um, could have been written as like r of x and s of x, right? To say just some random example, and just because this is labeled r of x and this is s of x doesn't mean you can't use the quotient rule, right? Because it doesn't have f of x in the numerator and g of x in the denominator. The labels are just labels, right? But what is important for you guys to think about in in terms of just applying rules in general is that it's the position of the function that you should correlate. So the sine of x, since it's in the numerator, that correlates to f of x. Since f of x here is in the denominator or the bottom function, that correlates to g of x. So think about in terms of a position of the function rather than the actual label I think it's a good way to think about it. So when I learned calculus, I thought this was useful to me, right? In terms of if we want to emphasize that strategy of thinking about the position of the function, I call this the top function, this the bottom function. And so if I use that idea, the quotient rule turns out to be bottom times the derivative of the top minus the top times the derivative of the bottom divided by the bottom squared. And when I learned this, I would just keep using it and keep saying that statement in my head until, there's a certain flow to remembering it, because it's sort of like a song lyric, right? So bottom times the top minus the top times the bottom divided by the bottom squared. So if you think about that in terms of the position of the function, I think that will make it a lot easier in terms of carrying out the rule rather than focusing on the actual labels of f and g. So why don't you guys go ahead and try that out and let me know if that helps you.